Welcome to the Authorized CPC External Reviewer, also known as ACER training. This training is intended for anybody who is serving as the external reviewer for a school applying to the California PBIS Coalition's recognition system. Today we will present the roles and responsibilities of the Authorized CPC External Reviewer in supporting schools applying for CPC recognition. First, we plan to provide an overview of the CPC and its scope of work. We also will define the PBIS framework while making connections to California's multi-tiered system of support. Then we will present the process for measuring a school's fidelity of PBIS implementation using the Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or TFI. Lastly, we will review the responsibilities and activities for ACERs before, during, and after administering the TFI. In order to complete the ACER authorization process, there will be a short quiz immediately following this presentation. The CPC's mission is to support the implementation of PBIS across all 58 counties, 1,100 districts, and over 10,000 schools in California in order to positively impact the 6.3 million students served in our state. We are dedicated to providing a standard of practice for PBIS through the work of regional technical assistance centers across the state, building policy and political support for student safety, wellness, and achievement, and establishing a network of education leaders across the state. As we get started, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the work of the CPC's Recognition Work Group, whose members have worked to develop the CPC recognition system, including this ACER authorization process. The CPC initiated the recognition process to provide an opportunity for schools and districts to reflect on and celebrate their progress in implementing and sustaining PBIS. The process also allows California schools to connect with each other to exchange implementation stories across various grade and demographic considerations. Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports is a multi-tiered framework focused on the outcomes, systems, practices, and data to establish a social culture in schools that is positive, predictable, consistent, safe, and equitable. The key outcomes associated with PBIS include an increase in instructional time, a structure for the systemic supports for students, a reduction in the use of exclusionary and punitive practices, such as time out of class, and the implementation of evidence-based practices for making schools and classrooms welcoming, engaging, and positive places for all students. The California Multi-Tiered System of Support Framework holds the crowning domain of MTSS, which includes the features of inclusive academic, behavior, and social-emotional instruction, with the 4 supporting domains of administrative leadership, integrated educational framework, family and community engagement, and inclusive policy structure and practice. Each of the 4 supporting domains includes 2 features found in research to sustain the implementation of MTSS. Because PBIS is a framework that is multi-tiered and evidence-based, it falls within the feature of inclusive behavior instruction. When school sites implement PBIS with fidelity, many features of the 4 domains of administrative leadership, integrated educational framework, family and community engagement, and inclusive policy structure and practice are evident, and thus PBIS implementation becomes integrated across multiple domains and features of the California MTSS framework. Schools build and sustain a full continuum of social-emotional behavior supports by implementing the data, systems, and practices of PBIS. This begins with universal practices for all students, using data to inform the need to add supplemental support for some students, and continuing to use data to layer on intensified support for the few students with greater needs. Many of you are familiar with the continuum of supports logic as illustrated by the triangle. We will describe the logic of the triangle when applied to PBIS and student problem behavior. When we invest in universal Tier 1 supports for all students with a high degree of PBIS implementation fidelity, the evidence base indicates numerous outcomes, including reduction in problem behavior and a positive response for approximately 80% of students. As a result of solid universal supports, schools can expect to provide an additional layer of supplemental Tier 2 supports for approximately 15% of students. Finally, when Tier 1 and Tier 2 are implemented with fidelity, schools can expect that approximately 5% of students will require Tier 3 intensive supports. By investing in prevention first, schools demonstrate positive outcomes with the majority of students, which leaves more time and resources for the students who need supplemental and intensive supports. In this next section, we will provide an overview of the Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or the TFI. This is not intended to be a comprehensive training on the TFI. For more detailed information or technical support regarding the TFI, please reach out to your local PBIS technical assistance provider. We would like to thank the folks at PBIS Apps for allowing us to present some of their slides for the purposes of this training. A hallmark of PBIS is regular assessment of the extent to which we are implementing the core features. Measuring how well we are doing is an important step to implementing PBIS well and sustaining implementation. The TFI was developed to provide one assessment across all 3 tiers of PBIS implementation that could also be used for progress monitoring and annual evaluation. Teams also use the results from the TFI to build action plans for improving and sustaining PBIS implementation. The TFI is an efficient and valid index of the extent to which PBIS core features are in place within a school. Studies show the TFI is a reliable measure with demonstrated consistency of results among different raters. The TFI is a valid measure in that there are significant correlations with other measures of PBIS implementation. And lastly, PBIS teams reported the TFI as an efficient and useful tool for decision making. The TFI connects to the idea of continuous quality improvement and aligns with this model of data-based decision-making cycle of evaluate, plan, and implement. We begin by using TFI assessment data to evaluate the current status of implementation and identify potential problems or areas in which teams need to improve PBIS implementation. Next, we use the outcome data from the TFI to plan, including establishing goals for improving specific features identified through the TFI assessment, as well as developing an action plan or solutions for how to achieve those goals. As we implement solutions with integrity, we evaluate or monitor our fidelity and outcomes, compare to our goals, and then reassess and revise the plan as needed. This cycle repeats itself until one goal is met and we can move on to another. Following the guidance from PBIS Apps and the Center on PBIS, continued administration of the TFI is recommended even when schools are in session remotely or in a hybrid model. For more information on how to conduct the TFI remotely, please see the Center on PBIS practice brief linked on www.pbisca.org in the Recognition tab. In the next couple of slides, we will provide a quick overview of how to access the TFI and look at additional resources. For additional assistance beyond this training, please contact your local Technical Assistance Center. To access the PDF version of the TFI, you will visit pbisapps.org and go to the Applications menu drop-down. Once there, you will see a choice in the drop-down menu called PBIS Assessment. Click on PBIS Assessment to direct you to that page. Once you are on the PBIS Assessment page, you will find the various surveys related to fidelity of PBIS, including the TFI. This tool is made available as a PDF. In addition to finding the TFI in PDF format, you will also find various TFI resources such as videos, an action plan template, and webinars that are conducted monthly. Some of your schools may be using the TFI Cultural Responsiveness Companion to bolster PBIS implementation. The companion guide is embedded in the PBIS Cultural Responsiveness Field Guide. Some teams may want to measure implementation and build their action plan using the expanded, culturally responsive features of PBIS implementation. You may download the guide at pbis.org, and it is also linked on the pbisca.org website under the Recognition tab. While this component is not currently included in the state recognition system, it is highly recommended that teams be aware of this resource. Let's talk for a moment about PBIS Assessment Coordinators. PBIS Assessment Coordinators support schools through the management of assessment tools specific to PBIS implementation, such as the TFI and the School Climate Survey. While it is not required to be a PBIS Assessment Coordinator to complete the responsibilities of an ACER, you may be interested depending on the requirements of your job. All school teams applying for recognition will need to have access to a free PBIS assessment account to input TFI data. If your school does not have a PBIS assessment account or a local PBIS assessment coordinator, please contact your local Technical Assistance Center or pbisapps.org for more information. If you would like to become a PBIS assessment coordinator for your district, download the coordinator information form from pbisapps.org. Once completed, send the form to support@pbisapps.org. Now that we have set up the context for PBIS implementation and measurement of fidelity, let's take a look at the role of the Authorized CPC External Reviewer. An Authorized CPC External Reviewer, or ACER, is necessary to support schools with California's PBIS recognition system as well as to grow local capacity. The ACER should be an individual with PBIS knowledge and a person who is external to the school applying for recognition. Often this role is filled by a district coach or a technical support staff, but can also be a staff member from a neighboring school who is familiar with PBIS. Regardless of the title or daily role of the person, the ACER must meet the qualifications in this training and complete the ACER assessment. The ACER must provide the support described in this training during the same school year as the recognition application and can be accomplished in person, on campus, or via virtual learning space. The ACER should provide the TFI walkthrough, facilitate the TFI scoring, and conduct the classroom walkthrough. Before you sit down with a school site to conduct the TFI with the team, you will want to do several things to prepare so that your time together is as efficient as possible. Some of those things include scheduling a campus visit for student and staff interviews, classroom walkthroughs, and securing a time to facilitate the TFI with the team. There is also some documentation that makes it helpful to have handy and even look over before you are with the team to facilitate the TFI. We will share all of these things in this next section. First, it's important to schedule a meeting with the right people to complete the TFI for the particular tier or tiers you are focusing on. The TFI should be conducted with the PBIS team, the school coach, and an external evaluator, which, for the purposes of the state recognition, is the ACER. Each tier will take approximately 30 minutes to complete. The more familiar you and the team are with the TFI items, the less time it will take to complete. For the purpose of the California recognition system, it is important to know which level the school team is applying for. There are 4 levels: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. The higher levels of recognition require that teams assess all 3 TFI tiers with an ACER. By ensuring that the correct team members are present and the school coach is available, you will optimize your time together. Criteria number 7 for California recognition requires that ACERs observe classrooms and take note for the specific evidence-based classroom practices, maximize structure, classroom routines, expectations, active supervision, opportunities to respond, and acknowledgement. These practices come from the Supporting and Responding to Behavior document summarizing evidence-based classroom practices and is found at pbis.org. While this is not a requirement for completing the TFI, it is an important component for applying for state recognition. The classroom walkthrough tool was developed to assist ACERs while conducting observations and to help take data. For this school year, the tool includes considerations for virtual learning. The tool is posted on pbisca.org under the Recognition tab and is linked in the criteria at a glance. As mentioned previously, it is important for the ACER to be aware of the recognition level the school team is applying for to determine the number of classrooms and evidence-based features that need to be observed during the school visit. For example, for bronze and silver, ACERs need only to visit some of the classrooms, whereas gold and platinum levels require the ACER to visit at least 10% of classrooms and that those classrooms meet the threshold for observed evidence-based practices. For more on the California recognition criteria, please see the criteria at a glance. Before meeting with the team to complete the TFI, it is recommended the team complete the companion tool that is associated with each tier. Completing the companion tools will assist the team in answering the questions on the TFI. We will go through each of the appendix tools. The appendix is located at the back of the school-wide PBIS TFI document. We will look at Appendix A, B, and C. The TFI companion tool for Tier 1 is the walkthrough tool. It is found in Appendix A, which is located on pages 27 and 28 of the TFI document. This is a tool that is used by a coach or external person to complete prior to the TFI, and is the tool the ACER should use during the school walkthrough. Page 27 provides an overview and the questions to ask staff and students. Page 28 is a place for recording the information and provides an efficient way to calculate the percentages to assist with scoring the TFI items. During the school walkthrough, students and staff are randomly selected to answer a few questions. We recommend scheduling the walkthrough so the ACER can talk to students and staff during non-instructional time. We recommend allowing for 45 to 60 minutes at the school for the TFI walkthrough. The answers to the questions are necessary to complete 3 of the items on the Tier 1 TFI. If you are completing the TFI walkthrough remotely, a phone or web call can be set up to interview the students and staff. If this is your first time conducting the TFI walkthrough, you can access a handy tip sheet that includes the information we'll be discussing today in the Resources section under PBIS Assessment at pbisapps.org. We also recommend pairing up with somebody who has conducted a walkthrough in the past who can model the process and answer any questions you might have along the way. The Tier 2 Targeted Interventions Reference Map is the companion guide for the Tier 2 TFI and is located on pages 29 and 30. Page 29 includes a completed example as seen above. Page 30 is the blank form for the team to complete. It is important for the team to meet together with their coach or coordinator. The team will list the interventions across the top and then enter a yes or X for the need that is met by the intervention. This will help your team assess whether the school has an adequate number of interventions to meet the needs of the students. Items 2.5 and 2.7 of the TFI will refer to Appendix B for item scoring. Appendix C, the TFI Tier 3 Support Plan Worksheet, is the document that assists the team in answering specific items about Tier 3 behavior interventions being implemented. This is found on page 31 of the document. The team will randomly choose up to 3 current Tier 3 plans created in the last 12 months and score the plans accordingly. If there are no plans available, the team must score a 0 for all TFI feature scores on Appendix C. The team should have this complete when the ACER comes to facilitate the TFI with the team to maximize efficiency. After you collect the companion tools, there are other supporting documents that act as data sources while scoring the TFI. The TFI includes a column for possible data sources that supports each feature of the TFI. This doesn't mean that all of the data sources must be used. There are examples of documents that can assist the team in answering the questions. This slide lists the possible data sources that can help with completing the TFI for Tier 1. Additionally, be sure to ask the team if they have a PBIS school handbook because many of these items may be embedded within that handbook. You may find it helpful to look over these documents prior to scoring the TFI. These are possible data sources schools can use to assess their Tier 2 PBIS implementation. Again, some of these sources may be embedded within the PBIS school handbook. The intervention tracking tools is listed in the TFI, but there isn't an example in the appendix. PBIS applications has some example templates. TFI Feature 2.11 references the intervention tracking tool as a possible data source. Here is an example from Placer County, California, and an example from the Illinois PBIS network. Copies of these tracking tools can be found at pbisca.org under the State Recognition tab. These are possible data sources for Tier 3. They are not required, but are possible documents to assist the team in answering the questions. Once you have completed the TFI walkthrough, collected the TFI companion guides, and have access to various documents that may support facilitating and scoring the TFI with the team, you are ready to meet with the PBIS team to facilitate scoring. Teams can complete the TFI in a variety of ways. 1. Use a projector to log into PBIS Assessment. Pull up the TFI so everyone can see. Enter the TFI scores as the team answers each item. 2. Provide hard copies of the TFI for the team members, and then either have one person write down the answers or complete it online as you work through the TFI. 3. Provide team members with a hard copy or the website link of the TFI to view prior to the meeting. One recommendation for getting maximum team member voice is for one person to read the item, and then on a count of 3, each team member votes with 0, 1, or 2 fingers. The majority is the score that is entered. There may be some discussion or clarification of the items, however, the discussion should be brief. Please note, this isn't a time for action planning. As educators, we will often want to begin problem solving. Pre-correct that this is time to complete the TFI. At the next meeting, action planning can begin to take place. At the bottom of the slide, you will see a link to a video example of TFI facilitation from the folks at PBIS Apps. This link to the video is also posted on pbisca.org with the state recognition materials. You may wish to view this video as an example of what facilitating the TFI looks like, but it is not required to complete the ACER training. Alternatively, you may wish to co-facilitate the TFI with somebody who has experience in case you have questions along the way. Teams will choose the TFI tiers to assess depending on their current PBIS implementation and need for assessment. Each tier of the TFI has a different number of items to answer. Tier 1 has 15 items, Tier 2 has 13 items, and Tier 3 has 17 items with corresponding companion guides found in the appendix. Remember to allocate at least 30 minutes for facilitating each tier. Depending on the structure of the school's team, it might be best to score the TFI on paper and transfer the scores over to PBIS Assessment after all TFI tiers are scored, rather than to enter all scores into PBIS Assessment at one time. To apply for recognition, there must be a TFI from the current school year entered into PBIS Assessment. If you need assistance with how to do this, reach out to your local Technical Assistance Center for help. Remember to thank the team members for their time and participation in this process. Depending on your role, your assistance with the recognition process may end with what we have described so far, or you may also be involved in the action planning process with the school team as well. Developing and reporting action items based on the TFI results is a part of the team's recognition application. If you are a part of the action planning, here are a few helpful tips in developing an action plan. First, celebrate all of the twos. The team has worked hard to get those scores, and that work deserves acknowledgement. Also, be sure to share the results so that progress is transparent and everybody knows what the team is working on. Next, review all of the items scored 0 or 1 and prioritize 1, 2, or 3 items for action planning. Last, action plans should include 3 elements: who is doing what and by when. These 3 elements are not only necessary for action planning, but they are also required information for the recognition application and will help set the team up for success. Working towards next steps of PBIS implementation in this way guides the sustainability and fidelity of PBIS. This concludes the ACER training presentation. We have reviewed a lot of information in a short period of time. Should you have any clarifying questions at this time, please contact your local Technical Assistance Center for information and resources. Also, be sure to look at the CPC website's State Recognition section for FAQs and helpful ACER resources. Please continue on now for a short assessment of the content you have just learned. You may wish to have a copy of the TFI and supporting documents available during the assessment. There are 10 items in the assessment, and a score of 80% or better is required to become a certified ACER for California's recognition system. Completion of the training and results from your assessment will be sent for review to the CPC team, where a record will be kept. This record is cross-referenced with school recognition applications. You may take a screenshot of your completion as well for your own records. On behalf of the California PBIS Coalition, we thank you for your time and dedication to supporting schools in creating positive, predictable, safe, and equitable environments for all students.